Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Wildman Revolution podcast. As always, the premise of the podcast is to highlight men that are doing great things in the world. I'll get to our today's guest very, very soon, and he is definitely a man doing great things. Be sure to like and subscribe YouTube if you like the visual. Some of the podcasts do have a visual aspect to it, especially when we do go into markets and crypto and things like that. Or on Spotify, iTunes, and all the relevant platforms. Be sure to leave a review. Again, like and subscribe. I've got a bunch of t-shirts to still give away. If you leave a nice comment, a truthful comment, even if there's some shit, I'm open for constructive feedback. But today's guest, I think, especially in the Australian scene, is doing an absolutely phenomenal job. And not only have I followed him for years, we've had great chats, and I really resonate with his journey, background, drugs, alcohol, rehabilitation, so on and so forth. He's got an amazing program called the Youth to You program going at the moment, and we will definitely touch on that. A published author with a great book. I'm definitely got some questions around that because it really resonated. Again, drugs, alcohol, rehab, recovery, all the things that come with that. This man is right at the heart of it. Glenn Munso, it is an absolute privilege and pleasure to have you on, brother.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. Thank you.
How you feeling, mate?
I'm good. I'm cold, actually.
Cold. We were just having a convo before the podcast here. I was complaining about the cold here in the Northern Rivers where it's like 22. And he's like, yeah, it's about 7 here with a big smile on his face. Melbourne, Victoria, man, my old stomping ground. What keeps you there, brother? What keeps you there?
What keeps me here? Family, I guess. Family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, just family. I haven't even thought about moving.
That's one of the surprise questions, bro.
I'm like, shit, what actually does keep me here? I guess it's family, and I'm just here.
Yeah, man. And straight into it, mate. You're doing great things in the world. You have for a number of years. I've read your book, and actually one way I got a little bit more background on it, because I think when we've generally caught up, it's been through the missus, and it hasn't been us directly. And but watching your journey unfold and the service you give back to people, it's so inspiring, man. And what's the main thing for you that really kickstarted it?
Well, like, I guess what kickstarted for me is just like I was on drugs. For the first time, I was dealing drugs on drugs, and then for the first time in my life, I got convictions, so criminal charges, and I got sentenced to like a 1-month jail sentence, and then appealed that for an 18-month intensive corrections order. So I was still quite young at the time. I was like 21, but I had no idea like what the hell was going on, because I'd never been through, I don't know, like the system or whatever you want to call it. And then through my order, I had to do a lot of rehabilitation programs. I had to get assessed by a psychologist. And I remember my first assessment straight out of county court. I had to go see a psychologist. They assessed you, and then they kind of see what order is appropriate for you. And the first thing that she did, she kind of did like a background kind of information thing, and then said, so there's 4 siblings all up. My older siblings are a lot older, like my sister's 11 years older than me, my older brother's 7 years. But she's like, because your sister wasn't there, like, because she moved out and all that sort of stuff. So like, oh, you're kind of like the middle child sort of thing. And they're like, based on what you've said, being the middle child, and the family history of alcohol, whatever, this was normal, or this was something that was bound to happen. And she said, it's quite obvious and quite common for you to be an alcoholic. And when I heard that first, I was really, really upset, because like I didn't drink. Like I was on drugs, but I didn't drink. I barely drank. Even still now, like I don't drink. It's just something that I just don't do. And I remember when I left that interview, because I also had altercations anyway. I had altercations with police as well. And I was kind of like explaining something, because I had assault against police officer, but I was kind of mistreated in a way that, you know, I still think wasn't appropriate. I had a broken hand and all that sort of stuff. And I remember, you know, when I was speaking to the psychologist, at first I thought it was a safe space to kind of like explain exactly what was going on. And I said, look, you know, I got bruised and kicked and my battered and punched in the face and all this sort of stuff from the police officer. My hand was broken. You know, I'm 21 years of age, like, you know, and I was going on about this, and she kind of just brushed it off. And then kind of just wanted to talk about me having violent anger issues and, you know, and being an alcoholic, and that wasn't me. So after that, I remember leaving just thinking, like, really, really upset, confused, and just sitting in the car thinking, like, what the fuck? Like, I just sat in this long session getting assessed and looked at, you know, background information, how old you are, parents, what home was like, all that sort of stuff, looking at my convictions and all that sort of stuff. And then she said something like, you know, it was like an 85% chance and above that I would continue to reoffend, and, you know, I would end up in jail. I remember sitting in the car just thinking, like, what the hell? That really, really upset me. And then just going through my order, I just felt like a lot of the time I was trying to convince, you know, my corrections officer or psychologists or counselors, anger management courses, that I was a good person and that I wasn't some, you know, dickhead, and that I came from a good family, and, you know, and it was just like this whole picture was just painted, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, no one's like listening. No one's actually listening to me. Like what's going on? So it was really confusing. I was really angry. It was really like I lost hope. And I got put into a program. So in Dandenong, the whole of corrections, and like Dandenong's pretty rough. And, you know, the whole of corrections, there's a lot of like rough people go through there. Anyway, they were doing a program for like cognitive behavior and all that sort of stuff. And it was run by 2 psychologists, and they interviewed the whole of corrections. And I remember my corrections officer said, like, you just go for that interview, but like you'll be sweet because like you're still young. It's more for the like serious offenders. Anyway, they interviewed the whole of corrections, which would be a lot of people. And I remember going the week after, like, you know, during the interview, I was, you know, getting assessed. They asked you all these questions, same thing, background information, what's your charges, all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, you finish it and they're like, oh, we'll let you know whether you've been like accepted into this course. Yeah. And then the following week, I got a letter from my corrections officer, because I had to meet her twice a week to sign in and stuff. So I went and signed in and had my meeting, and she gave me an envelope, and it said that I'd been accepted into the course. And she was quite shocked as well, because, you know, it was only like 10 people.
Yep.
So the following week, I went into this program, and it started like 10:30, 11 o'clock, because all the older guys, they're all older, like way older, like 30 years older than me. If I'm like 21 at the time, they would have been like easily in their 50s. And they were all on the methadone program. So like really, you know, heavy drug users. And just when I went in there, like literally it was just like a big circle and all these older guys in there, and they were literally like falling asleep. Like no one's eyes was open, because I remember walking into there going, what the fuck is this? Like, what the hell? And the psychologist was writing something on the board, and I remember going, hey, good morning. And she kind of like got shocked, because like, you know, someone was alive and awake. And then, yeah, so I sat in that program. I had to do that. I think that was like 12 weeks or something like that. But anyway, like through that program, it was like a little bit later on in my order. Through that program, it was like the first time I started to listen to people, because, you know, a lot of the older guys were like, you know, you don't want to like fuck around. You don't want to be here. Like, look at us. We're, you know, like 20 years older than you. Like, I wish I was your age. And someone fucking told me, you know, this was not the path and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And they were pretty serious, like, people. So, you know, like I listened, and there was, you know, from the stories and everything, just listening from them, I was like, fuck that. Like, I do not want to be in that position. There was one part of me that was like really, really inspired and moved by them. But then I was like, you know, you're telling me all this shit to do that you're not even doing. So there's a little bit of, you know, there was that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So like, I guess when I sort of look back on it, I was like, I felt really hopeless when I was seeing people that were clinical, and it was really hard to, I guess, relate to someone that hadn't been through what I'd been through. So that was just really, really hard to connect. And I felt like every time I spoke, like when I first opened up at the start of my order, they looked at me like I was a victim, and cops don't do that, and that's bullshit, and all that sort of stuff. So I wasn't really feeling heard. So I just shut up about it, I guess. And then when I got put into this program, I listened to these older guys, and then obviously, like, I was doing community work. I got like over 500 hours, so I was quite lucky. I didn't get a jail sentence, actually, like really, really lucky. So my order was like 18 months, and I watched people that did armed robbery leave. Like, they did orders, and then they finished, and I was like, fuck, like, they finished all their hours and everything. And they're like, what the hell did you do? Did you kill someone? Like, why are you still here?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess when I finished my order, like, or I was going through it, I was like, no one's really asked me about my goals. No one's really asked me about like who I am as a person. No one's really asked me about like what my next step is. It's like all I've been given was, it was an 85% chance that I was going to come back and reoffend, and everything was talking about, my drug use or my alcohol and all that sort of stuff. And I wasn't really even doing that at that time now. Nothing was talking about like after, like what happens after the program, what do you do after your order, like what are your goals. And I remember like sitting down with one of my corrections officer at the time, like there was like a feeling or something for like 4 weeks. And I remember like sitting down, she's like, oh, and I said I was doing personal training, and she said, oh, that's nice, everyone has goals, but it was like in a real condescending way. I remember just thinking like, fuck you, like what the hell, like you don't even know who I am, like why am I being judged so much? So I guess, doing my personal training course, it was like all about being focused. It was about, fitness and getting fit and getting healthy. Because I was quite overweight at the time when I first started doing my PT course. I was 112 kilos, and I dropped down all the way during PT, like 90. And I was, getting fit again. I was getting healthy. And I was like, fuck, this is awesome. I started, when I got my PT course at first, I started doing a program that was helping like people that were really overweight, and it was all mindset stuff, because I kind of still had a bit of shame around my, past drug dealing, drug using, all that sort of stuff. So when people were like, oh, what did you do before this? I didn't really say anything. And then once I opened up to someone, and they were like, man, like, why the fuck are you like training? Like, why aren't you doing that? And I was like, oh, you reckon? So then I just started, blogging off my page a little bit. And then I got really like into the mindset stuff. And then, I got like a business coach at the moment, at the time, and we're doing like a fitness challenge. And I was like, oh, I actually want to do something a little bit different. I want to, instead of like, I still want to add the fitness in, it's really cool, but I also want to add some coaching, helping youth that are going through mental health struggles and addiction struggles, because that's what helped me. And we'll add some mentoring sessions in there. So that's what I wanted to do. So I guess I put together this program because it was like fulfilling everything that I needed. It was like, had the fitness side of it, had the, the training part, and then kind of like the counseling, the mindset, the coaching side of it, and, wrapping that all into like a holistic point of view. And then like literally, like when people came in, I remember the first time people were like, oh, who's this young guy, like, saying all this shit. But literally, I remember, what, like people coming in and, they're talking about drugs and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, hang on a minute. Like, I just want to know, like, what do you want? Like I'd reverse the question onto them instead of like going, oh, you need this drug treatment plan. You need to do this, you need to do that, you need that. And literally, like I interviewed so many people, like had like meetings with people, and people were crying and saying, this was the first time someone actually asked me like what I actually wanted in my life. So yeah, man, I just kind of just ran with that. And then it's just kind of just taken off. I've been doing it now for about 8-9 years. But yeah, it's just, I guess it's a program that helps youth, young adults with mental health, with with addiction. But it's always more than that. and then giving them that space, giving them that community where they can get involved. So obviously I got my personal training studio. So not everyone in the program, I mean, not everyone in the gym is affiliated with the program. So just to mix it in, because I had that weird concept as well of like, you know, them and us for ages.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like that's pretty much the program, you know. Yeah, so
Man, it's super powerful. And I remember, like, I knew a bunch of this, but I actually read your book, Drugs Don't Discriminate. And
yeah,
I was reading parts of that, and there was parts of your story. Man, it was bringing up stuff from my past, because it was like, I got done for assault of the police when I was 19. I got bashed over the head with a radio. Now, I was a shit, but
yeah,
I was like, I didn't deserve that. But
yeah,
again,
yeah,
I went through that, and then I went through the corrections, and I was talking to people that had no fucking idea about me, had been through it, da da
yeah,
da da da. So I was reading your book, and I'm like, oh, this is bringing up some stuff for me from the past. This is cool. And what I loved about the book, there was like going into your story, and you've shared giving great context for the listeners and viewers out there of your backstory. But for me, I was going on, it sort of got me into the story of what you had done. And it was like, wow, I've done that, but it's been like 15 years down the track. You ran with it like so soon. You picked up on these things you didn't like about the system, your
yeah,
experiences, what worked for you, what didn't work for you. And that's what I appreciate about not only reading the book, but knowing you a little bit more from that, because you're super resourceful.
yeah.
Um, Talk a little bit more about the Used to You program. Like, you share a great stories. I check in every now and then on social media. I love that. Like, yeah, it's social proof to help us help more people, but it's fucking touching. It speaks to the heart, because I know I've experienced a lot of it. But speak more about the Used to You program and helping people and what that means to you.
Yeah, definitely. I guess like what it means is like, I guess, you know, I if I'm really honest, like with this, I just want to help and just inspire the people that come in and show them that, you know, just because they've been given a label of a drug addict or whatever it is, like that doesn't have to be a life sentence. You know, I really want to show people as well that it doesn't discriminate, because so many times, like, you know, even though like with my family, like, you know, people would hide what I was going through. People they knew what I was doing, but they would hide it. You know, oh, what's Glenn doing? Oh yeah, he's good. He's just not here today. You know, all that sort of stuff. And a lot of families come in, and you know, they come in and they're like, but we have a good family, but you know, we send our kids to good schools and all that sort of stuff. And you know, I guess with the program, I want to show people as well that it doesn't discriminate, and it comes from all different backgrounds. We're not looking at a certain demographic or a certain type of person here. It doesn't discriminate. And I really kind of, you know, the big thing is to really educate people, families as well, that it doesn't reflect your parenting and, you know, all this sort of stuff. Like, we shouldn't have like a stigma or shame or guilt and hide it, because, you know, that just kind of makes it worse as well. So, you know, it's really just about, for me anyway, like creating that space, that connection, that friendship with the person that comes in, you know, because they come in like broken, they come in, you know, defeated because they've relapsed so many times, or they've had suicidal thoughts, or they've been through the system, or they've been in and out of jail or rehabs, and this has just been a constant cycle, like non-stop. You know, or they've seen other people that have told them that they're going to be like this for the rest of their life,
Yeah.
which I think is bullshit as well. You know,
Well, like what you said, a lot of the system is designed to keep you stuck in the problem, to
yeah,
keep you stuck focused on maybe what is the problem. And I think a lot of that stigma and shame comes from that too. There's all this emphasis on when it gets labeled, and it keeps the person or the people or there. I
yeah,
remember, and again, it was another part in your book that I didn't know, when I think it was you'd been to court and you were waiting in a cell and you didn't know what was going to go on, and you
yeah,
hadn't really expected to be. You didn't think you were going to go to jail or something like that. I haven't shared this much, but there was a time in my life where I was facing assault charges that I did like on a holiday. I glassed a guy, bigger dude, self-protection, but I was a bit wild too.
Yeah.
And here I was, there was two people that knew about this court case. So I was reading you, like, even though it was probably in moments for you, and I'm taking me back to mine. I'm like, I was driving for 12 months. Two people in my world knew that I was even going to court. And
Yeah.
that was carrying a minimum 4-year jail sentence.
Yeah.
And I was freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
And I went down this last time, the last court case, and I was not confident. And I still hadn't told anyone. And I was just like, on a whim, I'm like, I better fucking not go to jail. But it was all this shame and this guilt that I had too. I don't want anyone to know this, because then I know my family weren't going to talk about it. And it wasn't something we wanted to show the world and that. So there's so much of your journey that motivated you, inspired you to do what you do now, that resonates with me, even though the background's a bit different, man. So I seriously had a tear while I was reading your book, because it was just taking me through stuff that I've healed from, but stuff that just resonated so deeply.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think it's important to share the story. Like the other week, like, I had a family come in, and their child's on, just going through their stuff, and they came in, and I said, let's do a family like session. Let's all have a family session, and because I think sometimes it's important. Sometimes if I know for me and the people that I work with, like when you're on drugs, you think that it's just you that's going through it, when you don't realize that the ones closest to you are also going through what you're going through, but in their own different, perspective of the situation. So we had this group session, and it was really just about creating the space for that family, but also allowing them to communicate how they actually feel, and and what they're individually going through, because I was saying it to me, but everyone else was listening. And it was really, really powerful, because for once in their life, they saw their dad, show emotion and start crying. And he was all of a sudden like a normal human being. And they were like, what the hell? This guy never shows emotion. We just thought like he didn't care and he was always a hard ass. But here he is in like full tears, and we're seeing this whole different side where we're actually seeing him, without the walls, and just really just being at the moment. And I think the more that we can share our stories and that perspective of what's going on, the more powerful and the more united that family unit can be as well, just by being real and showing that vulnerability as well. So I always think vulnerability like is power with this, but I also tell the people that I'm working with, don't get stuck in your story, because you can get stuck in the story, and sometimes people that are on drugs get stuck in the story of being sick, because then that's when they get more love from their mom and dad. That's when they get more attention from the people that are around them. So like, yes, there's a part that you've got to nurture and do all that sort of stuff, but then there's a time as well where I believe you got to kick ass a little bit, give them that hard honest truth, to get up on their feet, like keep moving forward and keep doing what you're doing as well, and just kind of like breaking those dynamics and breaking or like understanding and having awareness of like what the needs are of that individual as well. But it always goes down to I believe anyway the mindset, understanding the actual individual, like the people that come through the program. It's like understanding the actual individual, and just listening, so that they're heard, but also giving advice from experience, giving advice on what they said they first wanted when they first came in as well. But it is important, because sometimes I feel like we tiptoe around shit. We have a loved one that's suffering and they're using drugs and they're doing all this sort of stuff, and we're too scared to approach them. We're too scared to tell them how we actually feel. We're too scared to tell them like, get your shit together, because it's destroying me seeing you like this, and I can see it's destroying you as well. So I think the more honest that we can be as well, with the situation, there's like a lot of power behind that as well. Like, yeah, it's tough, but we've you have to be honest with what's going on.
Do you feel with the family unit, what I find is a lot like previous generations, there's no education around like you use the example for the viewers and listeners. I knew the puppy would come into this.
Yeah, I have to give him away.
Everyone who's watching the visual, hello, he's had their little puppy on his lap. Oh, I knew the puppy would become the star. But anyway, there goes the cuteness. We've just got Glenn now. No, but with the family unit, there's no education around things like that, like how to sit down and like express being vulnerable and everything in previous generations. Like it didn't happen in our family. I think the only time that we sort of come together with this sort of thing is when I was just playing full victim. And I was at a point where I'm like, oh my God, I've just fucked up last weekend. I've taken too many drugs and done this. I feel so ashamed and so guilty that I need to position myself as a victim. I didn't do it consciously, but that's what I do. Then there was a dialogue, but there was no solution focus. There was no resolution. It was like, oh shit, what do we do? Do you find with what you're doing, and this is why I think it's more powerful, when you bring the family unit together, this is something that we need to see more in society?
Yeah, definitely. Like when people or parents go, oh yeah, I'll just drop them off. I'm like, no, come in. Cause we're like, we all need to be on the same page.
Yeah.
So there's like certain boundaries and expectations or whatever, kind of like, say that, so we're all on the same page. And that's like the commitment side of things, what the program, the values and stuff. And, I guess because when you're working together like this, it's, you're building that relationship as well. So like what you want on both sides and what you want, all that sort of stuff. But definitely like families need to be more educated on it, and understand, how to be honest, I guess, how to be vulnerable in front of their kids. I think like later on as well, like when you're older, like, you look at your parents different when you're younger and you're going through shit, but when you're older, you kind of like, you understand them a bit more. You just, you see them for actually just like people or whatever, like, just normal, like a normal person that's going through whatever and, have their own kind of dynamics and patterns and whatever they went through. But I think the more honest and you can be as a family, and show all those parts of yourself, the better that the family can come together, instead of like hiding it and, not talking about it or only putting your focus on your child or loved one that's going through it. And, it's definitely, I think everyone, like the family unit, definitely need to do work around it. That's definitely what's needed as well.
Yeah, 100%, man. I love that part of it too. And it's interesting when we do grow through this. And I like you've done a lot of inner work and you continue to clearly. And I do when you start to go, wow, yeah, my parents have been through their own stuff and they got their own model of the world and their own things. Yeah. And I sort of look back and I'm like, I'm not a shoulda, coulda, woulda person if I had known this, but I do empathize a lot more. And that empathy for me has helped me grow a lot in my journey to let go of a lot of attachments to when I'm healing from stuff or when I am having conversations with my mom or my dad. And what it's helped in time is having that, for me, that understanding.
Yeah.
We've built rapport over time as like, because I've got more respect that they've got their own journey and stuff. And when you throw drugs in the mix or alcohol or violence and stuff, again, this is why I think it's really powerful for you because it does impact so many people directly and their families and loved ones around them. That's why I think this is like right in the key to what you do, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, it is really important. And, even last night in our session, for our mentoring session, we were looking at, those kind of dynamics and what people or what they felt they kind of, similar characteristics that they had with other family members and, what was lacking and what was needed and what you were looking from them that you weren't getting and how you could bring that into your life and, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think that whole awareness is just really, really, really important. It's definitely an area to look at, while like while you grow, while you heal, because, it is pretty, it is pretty hard, like what you go through. And there's definitely parts of yourself that, the parent needs to heal as well as the child, as well as, the siblings or whatever. I think everyone needs to heal parts of themselves. And if they can't be honest, or if they can't communicate that, then they just kind of sometimes it just leads to resentment.
Yeah, 100%. Nah, it's super powerful, man. And you got into PT for your own journey. You got into physical fitness, and you started to get the results for that too. And
Yeah.
sounded like it took a few people around you saying, why don't you do this? But clearly there was a calling you had. You're super fit now. I didn't know this. I love reading books or whatever people have put out when I'm either doing research or, again, if there's a resonance, I'm going to look into some. You like ran the Great Wall of China Marathon? That's a trip out, dude. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So one of my goals was always to run the Great Wall of China Marathon. So it was always just, I'll do that one day. I'll do that one day. And so we just had people around the gym and stuff like that. And I remember just doing like my goals for the year, whatever. And I was like, fuck, this year I have to go do that. Yeah. So I started searching, doing research and all that sort of stuff. And then, I asked some people from the gym, had some friends as well. And I was like, let's go to China. Let's go do the Great Wall. So we went to China. There was 4 or 5 of us. And it was like the best experience ever. It's, it was really, really hot. Like I didn't know that China was that fucking hot. It was like 35 degrees, 36 or whatever. And just, man, like you go through, so you run on the wall, just steps and steps and steps. I swear I want to cry so many times. And then you go through the little villages, and all the kids that haven't seen like another race before. So they're like running and chasing you, and they're just like, taking photos of you. And it was really, really cool. So you go through all the like villages and stuff like that. Like, but you stop and take pictures. Like it's not, you have to soak it all in, So we did that, chilled in the villages for a little bit, then continued running. But by far it was like such an awesome experience. It was definitely like a like a bucket list or a highlight. But it was really, really cool. It was painful, but it was
painful, but cool. Nah, like I say, that sounds like really epic. And when you go into what do you want to do, and you go back to your story and your journey through the system and stuff like that, knowing that, hey, you can, if you put your mind to something, not only you can do that, and you're not the label you've been given, but what you wanted to do, and you started doing things like that. And that was just, I think, a really good example of like something that's like bucket list. Like people hear bucket list, it's like, when I retire. You're like, nah, fuck it, I'm going to do this. I'm into this. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's definitely, it was definitely like a really, really cool experience. And definitely, like I always tell the people as well, like, because sometimes like, you get this whole thing, like, you've done drugs, you went through this, and then that's it. It's a life sentence. People just settle. I always tell people like, no, like fuck that. Like I remember when I was in school and I was, being a little shithead, and they're like, oh, you've got to go do a trade. And I was like, I don't know. There's nothing I really like. I don't know. Like, and I remember just literally just sitting in that class going, I don't know. And they're just like, well, your grades are shit. So you've got these 5 options, electrician, carpentry, whatever, mechanic, and I was like, I would fucking suck at all of them. I would literally suck at all of them. So, I always kind of like think back to that, like, just going, oh, you've been the naughty kid, so you've got these 5 options. I always like tell people like, what, like, if you never had this issue or whatever, like, what would you be what would you be doing? Because I don't want you to kind of like settle and then later on going, fuck, like, oh, I fucked up my life or whatever. Because that's what I was thinking I was thinking that it was too late and I fucked up my life at the age of 21. When I look back, I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, what the hell is that? Like 21, like what the hell? So like when you get people coming in, they're like, oh, I've ruined my life. And they're like 23, 25. And you're like, are you serious? Like there's so much more living to do. Like you could do like literally like you can go back to school, you can do all the things that you've, wanted to do. Even myself, like, through lockdown and all that sort of stuff, I, registered as a counselor, drugs and alcohol counselor. So, did all the schooling and all that. And I just finished now my first year of uni as well. And these are things that I never, ever, because it was not like, academic at all. But, like later on, when you mature a little bit more, whatever, you kind of want to do all these goals. Sometimes I'd go, oh, no, I'm not for that or whatever, because these are beliefs that I had from when I was like, 17 or whatever. And I'm like, that's not me anymore. Like, I've evolved, I've grown up, yes, I can do that. So I always tell people like, there's still time and you can still, the time's going to go past. Because I remember I was like talking to my brother, I was like, fuck, maybe I'm too old to go do, like you go for this self-doubt. And it was like, well, the time's going to go past anyway.
Yeah.
So why not? So why not do it? So yeah, you just have to, like, I always, that's something I always push. I'm like, go fucking live and do the thing. Like, if you want to go travel, then let's set them goals now. Let's travel. If you want to go, do a course or, go hiking over there or I don't know, do a talk or start a podcast or whatever it is, like, let's do it. And I'll help them do it, because like, it's important, like, get that fulfillment, get that purpose and fucking go, like, let's do it.
Yeah, I used to have that story every time I'd fuck up or take too many drugs in my 20s or whatever. I'm like, that's the end, I'm done. And I'm like, when I was 21, when I was 23, when I was 24. And then on the other end, I'd have my dad saying to me when I fuck up, when are you going to grow up? When are you going to grow up? So it was like compounded. And then it took me to get to my 30s. But what I found around me, and it was where I was at, and I wasn't available for it probably, but there was no talk of coaching mindset. I had a corrections order and I went and saw someone straight out of uni, had no fucking idea. I'd talked to a counselor who just wanted to talk, and there was no focus on moving forward. There was no focus. I experienced that right through, and it actually wasn't until I got out of my comfort zone with a choice around my career to actually go and work in the Pilbara in WA that I got out of the environment that I was keeping myself in. I know this now. Back then I would have been saying it's because of this or it's because of that. I can't go because whatever. I was always at the effect. But when I got out of that, it opened me up to these like more motivational stuff. And like a few years later, like, a coach? What are you talking about? I thought a coach was like AFL or basketball coach or whatever. But it took a few action steps to make me available to other ways or other solutions. And for my journey, I wasn't 21 like you, man. It took me many, many freaking years to break away from drugs, from alcohol. And I think the environment thing was a big thing for me. What would you say to listeners or people tuning into this around how important a role environment would play on their circumstances or how they are in their world?
Yeah, like massive. Like I always say, look around, like, list your, your values or where you want to go and stuff like that. And, is your environment now a representation of where you want to go? Like it's literally like a yes or no sort of thing, and I always used to tell myself as well, like, does me hanging around or being in, being at someone's house and everyone's doing drugs except me represent where I want to go? And it's like, well, no, it doesn't, and then, do these friends represent where I want to go? If I'm on an order, like hanging around people that are using drugs and, like increasing the risk of, getting in trouble with the cops and all that sort of stuff, like, does that represent where I want to go with my life as well? So the community, the environment is really important. And that's something I'm like so big on. I tell these guys, like, you come to the gym, You know, it's funny because when you come to the gym, it's like a blasting like hip hop like music, and everyone's like having fun. And Jay got a basketball ring up there as well, and you know, it's a really cool vibe. Sometimes I can't even get rid of people. You know, I gotta go home, and I'm like, fuck, go home. I gotta go. Um, but that environment is like is key, and then you got to ask yourself, you know, as well, like, you know, when you're around that, um, does it serve its purpose? Is this environment going to lead me towards my goals, or is it going to kind of like bring me back and forth, like back to, you know, where I am? So the environment is key. It's like one of the most important things as well, because you can't, you know, I used to think like, no, it's all good. Like I can just go hang out with people that are still using drugs. As long as I'm not using drugs, I'm sweet. And then, you know, it's all good. Like, you know, I've got this all figured and all that sort of stuff. And then before you know it, I've relapsed, or, you know, I've gone back to that, because I haven't got people that are going, look, that are doing different stuff, or haven't got people that, you know, that are aligned to my goals, or what I'm doing in that current stage of my life as well. So surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals or people, environments, communities, is really important, because that's where you're going to learn and grow and all that sort of stuff. You know, I went into, you know, doing personal training. I did that at 100. I stepped into that course at 112 kilos, and I remember, like, on the first day, some fucking person like, I went in there and was like, are you lost? You know, because I was like this real overweight person. But while I was in there, I remember looking around, everyone was fit, pumping weights, doing all this stuff, and I was like, fuck, like this is the first time, no joke, this is the first time I was around people that wasn't doing drugs. And I was like, fuck, these people are right. Like, I would actually hang out with these people, like, you know, and it motivated me. I was like I was, you know, like really vibing off that. You know, I was like, getting fit. Everyone's like really health conscious, like really just, you know, into their health and fitness. And I was like, whoa, like I did not know this existed. So then when I was surrounding myself with that, it just really helped me grow, but it also helped me like step up, because I was like, fuck, I don't want to be like in an environment like this, you know, overweight and not being a representation of like that, or unhealthy, or, you know, because what I was at that moment when I first stepped in, that wasn't a representation of where I wanted to go, on the environment that I was in. So I stepped up. I worked hard till it served me, and it was serving me, and I was loving it. So
yeah, it's same like when I got into the coaching game and everything, like now, it was from me wanting to get better in certain areas of my life. And I remember going to a network marketing event when I was with a particular sort of health and wellness company. I still love that company, but I went to their event and there was like 6,000 people there. And here I was at the time, I had a bunch of shit going on. I'd quit the mines. I knew that had served me well up to that point, but I was really feeling lonely and lost. And I'd overcome a lot of the addictions and all that sort of stuff. I had great stuff going on in my life, but here I was at this point where I was searching for something and more. And I knew the power of environment, but I remember going to this network marketing event. I was petrified, man, because I got there and it was all these happy, excited people. And here I was, like, really at a point in my life where I'm like lost.
yeah,
I had a bunch of cool material shit, but I was lost. But that community, that environment, there was something in me that goes, although I'm in massive fear and anxiety around all these people now, I want what they have. They're all happy. They're all energized. They're all like super keen to talk to you and welcoming and all this. And like, I remember I walked away from that event and I knew the power of environment, community, and I committed to a coach. All this from there. And that it was the community, was the environment. And I seriously never look back from that point in the path I've taken with this. And I really urge everyone out there listening and tuning in, like, get around some good people, or place yourself, no matter what fear or anxiety comes up, because you are going to be supported. If you're the one who instigates that, if you're the one who goes and puts yourself there, you will be supported. I guarantee it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you really need to, just surround yourself with people that are going to support you, push you, and, like, you know, really help navigate like where you want to go. that's like super important.
Yeah, awesome. You go on heaps of tours and stuff. I know you're going on a few tours with the book, and you do lots of speaking events and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I definitely would love to get into more of that again, because it was a part of me getting out of my comfort zone was to do that shit, and with
Yeah.
lockdowns and all that sort of stuff, sort of drifted out. But
Yeah.
do you love doing that, going to different towns and things like that? Is that something really inspires
Yeah.
and motivates you?
Yeah, like so when I first wrote the book, like a good friend of mine like messaged me. Well, I didn't know at the time, and she messaged me and she's like, "Oh, are you gonna come up to Brisbane?" And I was like, "What? Fuck, would I come up to Brisbane?" I'm like, "Oh, what?" She's like, "Would you be interested in a book tour in Brisbane?" And I was like, "What? A book tour?" And I was like, "Fuck, I never even thought of that. I didn't even what."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No," I go, "Oh, like, yeah, like if we can make it happen." And she's like, "We'll make it happen." So I went to Queensland and she like booked, like I was fully booked for like 2 weeks, um, went to Brisbane, went to schools. We did community events with like parents and people that, were supporting, what we were doing, and wanted to, I guess, meet me, or they read my book and stuff like that. And, I went all over Queensland and I was like, fuck, like that was just awesome. It like blew my mind that like, people really wanted to, listen to my story and stuff like that. So yeah, I love the touring, and where it's taken me, I guess, like to be able to share my story, and connect with people in different parts of Australia and show them that if there's a way in, there's a way out, and give people hope, show them that it doesn't have to be a life sentence, show them how relatable I am, I guess, as well, like, with my story and me as a person, and just to get them thinking about it differently, about the topic as well, and then just literally just like speaking to people that are going through and be like, look, the reason why I wrote the book was to help more people and try cram as much as I can of the program into that book. So, if you literally just follow through it, there's heaps of exercises in the book, like follow through with that, do the exercise, do all that sort of stuff. And I truly believe that that'll definitely help you. So, it picked up a lot of momentum and people were messaging me going, "Oh, thank you. Your book's helped me so much." But yeah, the book tour got me, speaking and like, local MPs, for certain towns, like a mayor of like Portland, like, called me and booked a tour there, and went to Brisbane, South Australia, I even did talk in a prison as well. I actually got rejected at first because of my charges, so they wouldn't let me in, but a few of the workers had actually read my book, and one of the workers said that it helped her brother like so much, and then so they had like another meeting and they got me in, and then just spoken to heaps of schools, sorry, and then just run workshops. So that's been really awesome, just to show people. I guess it's just like a different, more evolved way of thinking and coaching through addiction. There's a lot of like old school stuff, which I touch in my second book. Is a bit controversial, but it's just like, I just want people thinking a lot differently. I want people to get rid of the labels. I want people to live differently, because one thing that I noticed was, because I met a lot of inspiring and awesome people that were doing massive things. They got off drugs, and you're like, you wouldn't even know that what they went through. And the biggest thing was they, I guess they kind of let go of the identity of being an addict. And that was always something that was really, really interesting as well. Like people that I worked with as well. I had people in my program just go like, we've done all this stuff, but we've never even talked about drugs. And they're like, whoa, like what the hell? um, and I'm clean. I'm off drugs and I'm kicking ass. I'm doing all this shit. And they're like we didn't even so we probably spoke about it like once or twice in the 10 months of working together. Because it's always a lot deeper than that. So, it really just opened up a whole. I learned a lot from it, in terms of like what people had been through, and I guess rehabilitation programs that are out there, and why people were kind of interested in my thing. And then I met a lot of really cool people, a lot of awesome people impacting and doing some massive things as well. So it's always inspiring. I absolutely love it. And then I get to, I guess, connect with a lot of youth and just tell them, like, go for it. Like, you can, instead of like, back then, I was saying about my water, instead of going, oh, don't this, don't that. It's just like, well, yeah, don't do it. But like, look at me, man. Like, you can do this and that and that. And even if it's not me, look at all these people that I've helped, and and what they're doing. Like, get inspired of like what they're doing. And just kicking back after the talks and just chilling with them and talking and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, man, it's like the tours have been, I absolutely love it.
Really. Yeah, I love that. There's so much in that. Like, again, there's so much in like what you're doing and when you're talking about this and what resonates. I remember when I went to the mines and I was in that environment, I was like available to go, oh, fuck, there's some parts of my life that I'm not happy with. I've got to work on. I was watching stuff, I don't know if it was on YouTube or where it was, of dudes that had their shit sorted, that were successful, but they were saying that they were being drug addicts and being down and out. And I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So here I am, like, researching, I'm like, oh, fuck. And that helped me start to believe, oh, there's more out there. And I love that sort of philosophy you've got too. And where you want people to focus on, not the drugs. That's not the problem, whatever. There's deeper stuff. And you bring that focus so it's looking forward and what they desire, what they want. When are you going on tour again?
So I'm going to Townsville in 4 weeks. Awesome. So I'm doing a workshop. So a workshop with Queensland Youth Services. So they've got two. So I'm going to Townsville to do like a day workshop, and then I go to Mount Isa, I think it is. Yeah. And then so I'm just doing like a short kind of. That's more like a workshop one that these organizations have.
Yeah, awesome. And we've touched on the first book a bit. It's super practical. I love that. It's a Steve kind of book. Practical. There's shit to do. It gets the masculine in my brain going. Like, hey, yeah, that's a different way of doing that task. I've got a bunch of tools myself, and I love that, because I think that helps. That helps the reader, especially if there's parts where they're stuck in their stuff. They're looking for a solution. If they're going to look at the book, they're looking for a solution. You give solutions straight up. I think that's really powerful. You mentioned the second book might be a little bit controversial. I reckon I'll probably agree with a lot of the controversial shit in there. Did you want to talk a little bit more to that book?
Yeah. So while I was doing the touring, I met so many people, and a lot of those people come from like NA backgrounds and stuff like that. So they'd be like, "Hey man, nice to meet you. My name's Steve. I'm a drug addict." And I was like, what? I was like, I never went to any NA meetings. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, what do you, oh, sorry. My name's Steve. I'm 7 years clean. Haven't touched drugs. I'm a drug addict. And I'm like, but you're not using drugs anymore. What do you mean you're a drug addict? Oh, I'm a drug addict. And I was like, oh, okay. Then I meet the next person. Hey man, nice to meet you. I'm a drug addict. And it just kept going. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, it kind of opened me up to this whole, like, I was like, whoa. Because I'd never kind of went there. And I was like, why the hell do heaps of people keep saying this? And I remember I had like a little thing on my Facebook. I was like giving 5 free sessions or something like that. And 2 people came in. And the first person I met was a girl, and she came in young and said, hey, introduced herself and said, I'm a drug addict. And I said, how old are you? She's like, oh, 19. And I said, you're a drug addict? She's like, yeah. And I said, okay. And I said, that is like, what else are you? Like if that's what you're saying, literally in the first second of meeting me, I'm a drug addict. And if you think about it as, let's just say, like an affirmation, or, something that's, so if this child or person is going around introducing themselves as a drug addict every time they meet someone, hey, I'm a drug addict. Hey, I'm a drug addict. Hey, I'm a drug addict. And then going to meetings that are saying, hey, we're drug addicts. Hey, we're drug addicts. Hey, we're drug addicts. You're just kind of like I guess.
Reprogram. Yeah, you're confirming what the story is of your identity, what you believe about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So And then I remember another person came in and they were like, oh, someone told them to go NA, and they said they had the big anxiety because it was like this guy who was like 55 and he was like, hey, I'm this clean for like 20 something years. I'm a drug addict. And they were like, what the fuck? They're like, yeah. And this person was saying, we will always be like this. We're drug addicts, all this sort of stuff. And they came in crying, going, what the hell? Like, am I going to be a drug addict for the rest of my life? And I was like, you know what? I've never called myself a drug addict, ever, never. It was literally not in my vocabulary. Like my vocabulary didn't expand that far. And I remember when I was doing a newspaper interview, like they read the article and they're like ex drug addict, and I was like, whoa! Like when I saw that, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what did you just call me? Like, so I was like, why? Like, like you're saying, like it's just programming. Like, how are you supposed to move on, step into an identity that serves you, you know, but you're still holding on to this title of I am a drug addict, and then I was looking at all the people that had done really good things, the people in my program, because I will never say that word. It just wasn't in my vocabulary. It wasn't even in my thought process, and the people that I met and all that. And I was like, I felt like, if we're talking about mindset and programming and all this sort of stuff, I was like, that needs to be spoken about. And there was a lot of people that weren't using drugs anymore, but were still labeling themselves as a drug addict. And, families were calling them drug addict and friends and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, people are calling you drug addict more than they use your name. Like that is not okay. That's not right. We really need to fucking change that. So from now on, I was like, anyone that steps into my gym and says the word drug addict, you're doing 10 burpees.
I like it. I like it. It's interesting you say that, because it was never something that I associated with, but I understand that people, when I'm communicating something, if I'm putting something in my marketing or something like that, I will utilize that to say I used to be an addict in that regard, because I know that it is ingrained in society. They go, oh, there's a resonance. Yeah. But when it comes to my realm of work and all that sort of thing, if I hear any stories like that, it's like, it's gonna go. No, like tell me more about that. But that is gonna keep you stuck, even if you get so many other parts of your life together. If you hold that, it's like anything. Like I can share this with my beautiful queen Chaitanya. She's worked a lot on identity around like being sexually abused. There's no difference in that if she carries that identity forever. And I've watched her transform, letting go of that and doing work around it. She's always going to be some part of her in a little bit of that. That's me. That's who I am. But it's not.
Yeah. So like that's what, because then some people would say, but like, I can't just forget that. I'm not saying you can't forget that. Like, us as humans, like there's so many parts of ourselves. I'm not telling you to like forget it and all that sort of stuff. I'm just saying, don't use that as the label that defines you as a whole person. Like, yes, we've gone through this sort of stuff and it's helped us. There's so many times and we've learned from it and all that sort of stuff. But don't use it as something that identifies or that labels you as a whole. When I sit with someone and they come in, so I had this story. I was working with a girl and she was like, yeah, I have all these goals, and was kicking ass, doing really, really good. 6 months in this program, doing really good. Had a relapse, told her to come see her. She came in, we were sitting, and I said, oh, well, like, what's happening with your goals? I can't do that. I'm a drug addict. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, so you relapse once and then all of a sudden you throw your whole life away because you're a drug addict. So it was really just like, just going into that. I'm like, so is that just your safety net? When I fuck up or when I'm doing really bad in my life, I'm going to call myself a drug addict. But when I'm doing really, really good in my life and everything's going well, then, it's kind of like that safety. And sometimes it's scary for people to let go of that, to step into something else. And like, yes, it's scary and all that sort of stuff, but there is parts of yourself that needs to, I believe anyway, in order to step and go into the direction that you want to go into, We definitely need to do some identity work. But yeah, so I guess, yeah, like what the second book is really just about. So it's called I Quit Drugs, Now What? So it's like that next stage, identity work, just doing a lot of identity work of that person, and them kind of just stepping into a an identity that serves them, or just learning how to let go of those parts that don't serve you anymore. um because sometimes it holds a lot of weight, a lot of baggage, and sometimes it's that's holding us back. So it's like, learning to release it, and then feeling how much lighter, doing little exercises, like don't call yourself that for the first month or whatever, and just feeling how much lighter that person feels by not associating themselves with the word drug addict, because they can have strong connotations to that, of like depression, anxiety, relapse, criminal charges, failure, all really heavy stuff. So when they kind of like release that, they feel a lot lighter, and they can kind of head into the direction, that they want to. But if I'm inspiring youth, I can't just go, and young people, I'm never going to be like, oh, yep, we've all used drugs, so you're all going to be drug addicts for the rest of your life. That would never inspire me. I would be like, fuck, no. So, if we want to inspire our youth, our young adults, or people that are going through stuff, we can't label them before we even get to know them.
100%, mate. 100%. I love it. Where can people get the books?
So you can get the books off my website, so youthuprogram.com. And yeah, both my books are on there.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'll drop all the links below for all the great work you're doing. One question I ask all the guests, and we could actually probably unpack this for the next 2 or 3 hours, this whole interview. So I'm definitely going to have to get you on again in the future. Wildman Revolution. When you hear that, you're a great man doing great things in the world. You're helping a lot of people. But when you hear that, what comes up for you?
Community, like leadership, empowerment, like coming together and having, like, I guess, strong Wildman leaders. Just having that, I guess, that masculine figure in the community that's inspiring, and showing people and sharing that vulnerability as well, like, showing all parts of that.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely love that. I definitely resonate with that. Another sort of, it's a question with sort of two parts. The world's a bit chaotic and crazy. Mind you, you're probably a bit like me. You navigate it well. You got the tools that you put into play, and you're still living your best life, so to say, no matter what's going on. But world's a little bit crazy. 12 months from now, how do you see the world? That's part one of the question. Part two to the question is, with that world, how do you see your role in it?
Yeah. I think after lockdown, there's going to be a lot of, especially here in Melbourne, there's we're going to, like, truthfully see a lot of, I guess, the impact of, because we were in lockdown for so long. I think there's going to be definitely more youth and more young adults looking for that escape. I feel that, mental health, addiction, all that sort of stuff, sadly, will be increased due to what's happened here in Melbourne over the last 18 months, 2 years. So, because I kind of see that now, but I think it's just going to be a bit of a shock to the system, to the world anyway. But I think that's just what's going to happen, to be honest, because there's a shortage of, like, people that can help, and there's that ripple effect of all the stuff that's happened in the last 2 years or so. So
yeah, and your role in that.
So my role is just create that space, support it, offer more, like I want to offer more groups within my program to help people, because I know there's waiting lists to go into places, or there's certain guidelines that don't make sense to get into programs. So, you know, it would just be evolving, offering more space, offering more groups, you know, and getting more people into the program, so that I can help with that issue.
Yeah, it is. I tend to resonate. Like I'm not a doom and gloomer. I'm a realist, and I like your real response to that. There's definitely no fluffy amount. I think the next few years, where a lot of people are in for a shock, whether it's the aftermath of lockdowns or what's been going on, and it's going to show up for many years to come. But I do feel the next 12 months or so, people like yourself who have already stepped up, you're really going to be there. And I love that you're going to open up more space or more programs or anything like that. It's definitely something that I'm doing at the moment, working on, like not just being prepared, but having the solutions that are there for the people, because I think there's going to be a real need for it.
Sure.
And you're right, for in the way that there are a lot of people to help right now, but there's still not enough. And I know for me, you've mentioned a lot in here, your story, people's story. There's a lot of power in that. If you've overcome something, you've had an experience, and sharing that is so important. I wouldn't be doing what I am now if I hadn't heard and resonated with people's stories out there that have overcome stuff and things like that yourself. What's your message to people out there that might have like overcome drugs or addiction or whatever label they want to put on it and got some shit sorted? Like, what would your message be to them people right now?
Like share your story. It has more power than you'd ever know. There is people exactly like you right now that are waiting to hear that story, to help them go through the stuff that you went through. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, awesome. And if you look down the camera now for the people you're here to help, and you had a message for them, what's some words of wisdom you would give to them right now?
That there's time. You know, work, like get to the work now, like do it now. There's never going to be a right time, so do it now. But there is time, in terms of, you know, like what's happened in the past is past, but there's time now to, you know, make or live and have that life that you've wanted. It doesn't have to be a life sentence. Addiction, anyway, doesn't have to be.
Yeah, awesome, brother. Awesome, brother. Again, you're doing great things in the world. This has been epic. I don't want to keep it to time because I do want to get you back on again.
Yeah, man, I'm cool. I'm chilled, whatever.
Next time we won't have the puppy on halfway through, or he'll be grown up. Nah, but guys, if you're tuning into this, please check out all the links that you can connect with Glenn further, the Youth to You program. We are all, I truly believe, especially here in Australia, at some point in time, I feel we're impacted directly by drugs, someone we know, someone closest, whether it's family or friends. If there's someone right now who you think needs help, I definitely recommend to not only check out Glenn's stuff, get in contact with the man, check out his programs online, locally down south there in eastern suburbs of Victoria. The book's practical. Please grab it now. Pass it on to a friend that you might think is in need. It's a very indirect way of saying, hey. Oh, I think it is anyway. And again, thank you so much for being on this edition of the Wildman Revolution podcast, man. It has been an absolute pleasure and privilege. Any last words?
No, thanks, man. I appreciate it. You know, I love what you're doing. So yeah, keep doing it. And yeah, thanks heaps for having me on here.
Oh, awesome, brother.
Thanks.